How are we all doing today? I hope that you are not getting too cold. I've heard that in lots of places in the world that it's a bit chilly right now. Also, on my last interview, a lot of people said to me, Eve, your rabbit cup is awesome. And to those people, I agree. And it's also a checkpoint to say, make sure that you're hydrated, people, because you know, we're all about cartography on Eve's Worldbuilding, but we're also about hydration in cute rabbit cups. But actually what we're more about is interviewing really cool, creative people. And today I'm very excited to say that I'm going to be interviewing Fred, aka Whiskey and Ink, for Napchats number 9. I just said Napchats. Just do a little snooze. Great interview, 10 out of 10. Map Chats number 9. Just a public service announcement that next week I won't be doing a Map Chats, not Nap Chats. But I'm still deciding whether I'll have time to do a live just on my own. But while we're waiting for Fred to add himself to the conversation, we're just going to appreciate my unicorn Pasheen because, well, why not? Like, look at it, it's glorious. And it's just got like this furry mane, got a bit of a floppy horn. Oh no, poor guy. Well, actually, I think Pasheen's a girl. And yeah, I've had this for a while now, and Pasheen, I have more than one Pasheen, and it's starting to become like a slight hoarding situation, maybe. I've got another one that has little glasses. I've got one that has a little Christmas cape, I'm going to say, a little Christmas cape. I've got one that's got a candy cane, a little spooky Pasheen. I know this isn't really map related, but you know, it's got to be done. It's got to be done. I think Fred has joined the chat, but I can't see that he's added himself to the conversation yet. So we're just gonna like chill here. Fred, if you're watching, you can add, if you just press add comment, and then I can add you to the conversation. It might be that my connection's not good enough. I'm not really sure. But yeah, how are we all doing? Today I've had a bit of a mad one. I've cooked a lot. I've done a lot of drawing. I went for a 10-kilometer hike. It's good. As well as being hydrated, you should also make sure you get exercise in, because especially during COVID, it's important to keep moving, people. Okay, so Fred's found the button. Oh, okay. Please bear with everyone. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. Please hold the line. Your call is important to us. I don't really remember what else I did today. To be honest, sometimes I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast. Maybe that's a bit concerning at the age of 27. But I do want to say thank you so much to everyone who sent me suggestions when I put up the little stickery thing on my stories, giving me suggestions for, slight spoiler alert, YouTube video suggestions, because while I may or may not have accidentally purchased a new camera, whoops, and yeah, I have every intention of starting a YouTube channel, but I don't want it to just be loads of tutorials, because I think those things are already out there, and it's good to see kind of my interpretation of it, but I want to have other things on there as well. Oh, okay, Fred's sent another request. This is the pending dance, hopefully. Brian, hello. Hello, Brian. Hello, Fred.
We're there. Okay, my internet's being wonky, so.
It's being wild. No problem. I was like, he's there, he's not there, he's a ghost. Right. Is Fred a real person? But the answer is yes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Fred.
All right,
how are
you? I'm fantastic.
You're fantastic. That's what we like to hear. I was, I accidentally at the beginning of this live said that instead of map chats, I said nap chats. I thought you were just having a little snooze. I think maybe I need
Oh
to have
dear.
a little snooze. I'm enjoying the tree as well in the back. Can you hear me okay?
I can. It's a little garbled once in a while here, so hopefully I can clear that up.
No worries. Basically, I've got some questions kind of set up for you. I've got some that I've thought of myself, and then also other people have sent them to me. So we'll just kind of work through those. And if I sort of say a question and then I just sort of pause, it's because I want to make sure that you finish what you're saying so I don't accidentally butt in. So that would be incredibly rude.
Sounds good.
Fred, introduce yourself to the fine people of the internet.
Okay, I've already lost your audio.
Oh no.
Okay, now you're back on. Your video is wonky though. I don't know if it's you or me. I can't tell.
I don't know. It looks okay on my end.
Okay.
It might be my internet, to be fair.
Okay, well, let's give it a shot. Again, sorry.
Okay. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can right now.
Okay. So, introduce yourself, Fred, to the people of the internet.
Just introduce myself. All right, well, obviously, you know, Fred Kroner. I have the Whiskey and Ink page. Just a little bit about my home life. You know, I've been married. This will be, in July, will be our 20th wedding anniversary. We have 4 children total, 3 cats. In fact, my cat is sitting here with me. There he is.
Ooh, so cute.
That's Boots. Yeah, I'm an engineer by trade. I'm a tool engineer. It's for a German company that is here in the States, which is polar opposite of, you know, creating anything. It's very, you know, it's very numerical. If you can't be creative at all. They frown upon that very much.
Okay.
So it's funny when I tell people I'm an engineer, and then what I really want to do is be an artist, and that's interesting.
Different worlds. Yeah. But it's good that you have this other side that you're exploring and that you get to use your creativity in another way. And that's what we're going to talk about today, your creativity, which there's plenty of. I'm just going to say now, like, I absolutely love all your maps, and I also think that you're just such a shining beacon of supportiveness in the cartography community. So thank you for always being so lovely to everybody. I see you in a lot of people's comments, just digging them up, and I think that's just really lovely.
Yeah. Well, this whole community is fantastic. It's really nice and supportive, and I've made so many friends over the last year. It's really nice to be a part of.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And how long have you been mapping? How did you get started?
Well, I've been playing D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, since I was 9 or 10 years old. That puts it at the late 70s, early 80s. And my dad showed me when I was really young, and then I just picked it up and went from there. And almost since the very beginning, I was doing all my own stuff, all homebrew, and selling, you know, maps and just creating adventures and worlds for, you know, 40 plus years.
Wow.
But I never really took it seriously as like something I could do, you know, for the rest of the world. You know, my maps were always just graph paper with, you know, funny shaped rooms on them, and that was it. But it really wasn't until I got on Instagram a year ago that I started taking it seriously and putting detail into my maps and doing something, you know, to present to other people.
Yeah.
So that's all new.
That's really cool. Like, it's amazing that you've obviously had this journey from, you know, experiencing D&D when you were really young, and now it's starting to grow into this like whole new kind of experience for you. That must be a really interesting transition from being the player or the DM to being the, you know, the drawer or the creator.
Sure, sure. I've always been the DM. I've almost never actually played D&D. I've always been the DM forever. And that's what I like. I like the creating, and I really like the role-playing aspect of D&D. You know, it was
Yeah,
always way more important to me than the numbers and the dice and everything. I could play
yeah,
D&D with just, you know, two people and nothing else, you know, just have a
yeah.
conversation and just bounce it off each other and just create this whole story. So there's
Would
that. And
you
that's kind of,
say, oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what kind of DM would you describe yourself as? Um, Kind of like somebody that likes to let the players do kind of what they want, or do you give them a bit more structure?
Well, if I have the time, if I have a group of players and we're getting together regularly, I like to do, you know, basically a sandbox game where I just kind of create a world. We make the characters, and I say, okay, what do you want to do? And then I just like to improv the whole thing. And a lot of times I'll give players descriptions of things that are intentionally vague. And I find 9 times out of 10 that they, trying to figure out what I'm thinking, give me the ideas, you know, and I go off of that. But
Yeah,
now that I'm older and, you know, I'm married and job and, you know, house and mortgage and all that, I don't have that much time to play anymore. So when I do get together with people, you know, which has been like once every couple of months or whatever, the time that we have to play is way more precious. I only have a few hours, you know, one day. So
yeah.
then I try to pre-write as much as I can and be really prepared, because I have a limited amount of time to get
Got to get the
players from
most out of
point A
it.
to
Yeah.
point B to point C. And yeah, so yeah, lately, and I write much more than my players would ever think of playing. It's a big flaw of mine. I'll prep a month for an adventure, and they'll either only play the smallest fraction of what I prepared, or they'll go total 90 degrees and do something I was completely unprepared for.
Always.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. Kind of in terms of world building, do you feel that you're more of a kind of free spirit, or do you prefer that you kind of like have a more rigid structure, kind of more hard world building? If you know what I
Um,
don't know what you mean.
yeah. Now, the older I get, the more structured I want it to be. You know, if when I'm drawing maps or creating worlds or whatever, I'm always interested in the how and the why. You know, why was that town built in that spot? Or if you're in a dungeon crawl, okay, here's a room and it has, you know, whatever in it. Like, well, why? Why would the creators have taken all the time and energy to build this room and put this stuff in it? It's not just random. It had to have a reason. So
Yeah.
a lot of times when I'm world building, I will every time I solve a problem, I solve it by creating 20 new problems that I have to solve. And you know, if I create a race or a country, well, now they're going to have their own languages, and well, you know, who are they trading with, and what's, you know,
Yeah.
how do you sustain all that? And it just becomes
Yeah.
this loop of
A cycle.
questions that you have to solve all the time. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you've got that perspective on world building. I did actually have a question from somebody. My Costa Blanca Garden is, how do you feel about kind of in maps specifically, how do you feel about realism, and also about kind of interesting biome combinations, dare I say a splitting river?
Yeah, I know rivers is kind of a controversy right now online with world building. You see that all the
Yeah,
time. I don't have any problem at all with really wild and crazy, you know, biomes and mountains and, you know, structures that are just not possible in the real world. But that being said, I like everything to sort of make sense within the fantasy view, you know, if you
yeah,
understand what I mean. Yeah, I have no problem with, like I said, with crazy biome stuff, you know, with say a society built on a lava flow or something that couldn't be done now. But if you can, like, cinematically make sense of what's going on, you know, if if you can at least explain the how and the why, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, right. You know, I know people will draw maps that have a river that goes coast to coast. Well, then it's not a river, it's a canal or something. You know what I mean? And
Shoot
so
them. No.
it needs to make sense. You know, rivers flow down, but that river could be doing all kinds of things and go in the new and exciting places. And there's no reason that things have to be that structured. You know, in the end, it's just your imagination, or if it's D&D, it's just a game. And, you know, if it turns you on and you can explain it, I'm all for anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in general that I think that the word fantasy should be as a flashpoint for people, that although it is obviously based upon, you know, a lot of things are based upon the world's geographical principles, that
Right.
actually it's fantasy and therefore it can kind of, there's a lot of other explanations which cannot be used in Earth's sphere,
Right. Yeah.
to explain things.
Right. You can't apply fantasy physics to real world physics. It just, you know, why limit yourself to that? You know, if you want some crazy cool rock structures, or, you know, a whole city lives inside a tree. I mean, of course you can't do that in real life, but, you know, it's fantasy, it's imagination. Like, yeah,
I would
lighten
live in
up
a tree.
and have fun with it. Yeah, exactly.
Girls Guide to Dungeoneering asked, what's your favorite memory that sparked your creativity?
That's hard to pinpoint because I've been doing it so long.
I mean, kind of pick a general feeling, or like if it's several successive events.
Well, really, you know, I'm creative in a lot of ways besides just the map thing and art. You know, I've been a musician actually since I could walk almost, and you know, I used to do wood carving and, you know, all kinds of stuff. And I used to build instruments and blah blah blah. But most of what inspires me to do what I'm doing is usually like, you know, if I am looking at a piece of art, or when I was into wood carving, I would see some art or, you know, a sculpture that I really liked. You know, well, I could go out and I could buy those things and put it in my house, but I'll think to myself, you know, I'm pretty sure I could do that. You know what I mean? So, you know, one day I grabbed the chisel, or I picked up a guitar, or I, you know, grabbed a piece of paper and started drawing maps. And I just always try to, you know, and not improve myself, but I get kind of stubborn, and I think, you know, well, I can do that. You know, there's no reason I can't, and I'll just, you know, work at it till I get it done. Once I decide to do something, I stay pretty focused on it, and I pick up stuff pretty quick. My problem, though, is that I move from one creative thing to another in rapid succession, so I never spend a whole lot of time on one thing. So
I think that's the kind of curse of being creative, though, right? That everything sort of sparks an interest, and you want to try and do as many things. But I think that it's actually incredibly brave to actually pick up and do stuff, because a lot of people look at things and think, oh, I could do that, or I'd like to do that, and then for whatever reason, I'm not good enough, I don't know how, they don't try. So I think it's a lot better to try something and then change it up than to not try it at all.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to look at it. Thank you.
We've actually got a question in the chat. Do you have one homebrew world for gaming, or do you have a whole new world that when you start a new campaign?
That's actually a great question. Recently, probably for about a year now, maybe a little more. I play D&D with my kids, my stepson, my two sons, and and there's an artist that I really like, who actually inspires me quite a bit. Her name is Anya Baz. She does drawings and sculptures, and you may have seen her work. Have you ever seen the meme, you know, with like the Persian cat doll and it's sitting in a chair?
Oh yeah,
that's her.
You said me, and I was like, yes, I know.
Yeah, right. So that's her, and looking at, and she makes all these amazing wild fantasy
You
dolls of all
shared
these
one
different animals.
story the other day,
I,
didn't you? Had
yeah, I
like a
do
voice.
share her once in a while.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, and so my stepson and I were talking one day, and we're both huge fans of her art. And we're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, we met this, that and that. And we're like, wow, we should make some stats and put it in our game. And we started creating this very unique fantasy world that we used to call the Land of Anya, but I about it, and she was kind of weird about me using her exact name. So we changed it up now, and now we have the Land of Anaya. And we've created a whole new series of races, like none of the traditional D&D, elves, dwarves are in there. It's all these races that are all built off of like woodland creatures. We have the crow people and the, wolves and muskrats and all this thing. And so for a while now, we've been building this world. I sort of created a map and an outline of the countries, and now I'm creating the campaign that I'm running them through. I create the world as they move through the world, so every time I create a new adventure, that's now part of the lore of that world. So we play, or I play strictly just that one world now, the Land of Anaya, and that's what I'm doing now. And all of the maps and illustrations that I've been creating that you see on Instagram are all places in the campaign that I play with my kids. And eventually I'll be doing illustrations of all like the races and everything, and I'll share all that and put that online and connect that to my Patreon and all that. And so there's a lot of material there. We've been working on it pretty hard for a long time.
Wow, that's really impressive. I wonder if she ever thought that she'd inspire a D&D campaign and a bunch of new races.
Yeah. And I did contact the artist Anya, and she's very, very nice and very open to conversation. And she just started playing D&D recently, so she was just so honored that I wanted to make this world based off of her. And she gave us some ideas and told us when we get the whole thing done and packaged that she'd be doing some illustrations and stuff for us. So I'm really excited about that.
Wow.
That'd be really neat. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm very excited to see that now. You have to get Joy now.
I'll share some of the stuff that we've done on there, yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, so we've got some whiskey-related questions, which I'm sure you're expecting. We've got Wormwood Maps is, what's your current favourite single malt of choice? And then we've also got, what's your overall ever favourite whiskey?
Okay, well, I'll probably make some enemies here because I know I have a lot of fans in the UK, but I actually don't like Scotch whiskey at all. So,
I mean, to be honest, I don't know anything about whiskey. This is just a disclaimer. I've never even tried it. I did sniff it once, and I thought, "Oh, that smells very alcoholic."
That's funny. Yeah, so Scotch whiskey, the malt whiskeys, I don't really care for. I know, because that's the thing.
Olive chops.
Pearls. I'm really into like single barrel bourbon whiskeys. My favorite one right now is Maker's Mark 46. So that's out there. If I just want a whiskey just to mix in drinks or whatever, Jim Beam is my go-to. So
I have heard of that one.
I actually didn't like whiskey until relatively recently. It all started when my wife and I started doing a low carb diet, and so I couldn't really drink beer that often anymore. And so I decided,
sad face.
I'm in D&D, and I should really just man up and like teach myself to drink whiskey. So you kind of put up with it in the beginning, but now once you get a taste for it, it's like anything else, it's an acquired taste, and now I love it. Yep, exactly. So now, to sit up at night, on the desk with a low ball full of whiskey and drawn maps, that's heaven,
Yeah, I think it's a really nice aesthetic. I really like your icon, and I think whiskey and ink just sound perfect together. So you clearly made the right decision. You
that
didn't
was
go
fun to make.
for an alcoholic drink. Whiskey was clearly the one for you.
Yeah,
And
it
also,
worked out.
Tiny One Shot said, "Have you ever dipped your pen into your whiskey or accidentally drunk your ink?"
Well, fortunately, I don't use, a quill pen like it is in the picture. So no, I use markers, but it's a good thing that I use markers because that's absolutely something that I would do. I could totally see that happening. So no, fortunately I haven't.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think for now you're safe.
Right, right.
If we ever see any stories of you with a black face, then we know that it's
Right, right.
something's
Across
gonna
my
miss.
face. Right. Guess what happened? Yeah. You'll
Old
never
Fred
believe
at it again.
it.
Old Gator Games asked, "What's your favorite D&D creature?"
um, well, I make a lot of my own creatures, so it's especially in the New World, the Land of Anaya that I told you about. The only creature that you would recognize from D&D as like a monster in D&D would be orcs. But even the orcs that we have in my campaign, we've totally revamped. It's something completely new. But for people who obviously don't know about that world, I would have to say kobolds for some reason. I really like, the little short, goofy things, and I try to make them comical, and they're always doing stupid things. And, and as you get higher up in levels, you bring on hordes of kobolds and, powerful ones. And yeah, I don't know. That's always been a staple. Whenever I need a quick encounter, bring on the kobolds. That's my favorite one.
It's a good choice. It's a good
Yeah.
choice. So, tell us about your journey on digital work and digital mapping. So I know that you're now the proud owner of an iPad, etc., etc. So tell us about your thoughts on digital work, what you see happening with your work in the future with digital in mind.
Okay. Well, yeah, as you know, I recently got the whole, iPad Procreate thing that you're seeing, a lot of cartographers use right now. Which I think, it's worked out okay. I have kind of an artistic background, so it wasn't that hard for me to pick up. I actually have been doing digital art for a number of years now. I used to do a lot of drawing in Photoshop and that kind of thing. I actually have a graphic design degree, so I do a lot of, you know, uh, doing logos and flyers, graphic design kind of stuff, logos for businesses. And so I have a lot of digital background, but when I picked up the iPad to do maps with and stuff, it worked out. A few of the maps that I posted are digital, and I think I did a pretty good job of making them look like I did it with a pen, but
Yeah.
it's sort of messed with my head a little bit when I really tried to just design stuff on the iPad strictly out of my head. I quickly learned that just because it's digital doesn't mean that it's easier. You still have to know how to draw in order to draw digitally. I think people have a misconception that, oh, well, it's done on the computer. Well, you hit a button, click, oh, there's your stuff, and it doesn't work like that. So I started to get frustrated with doing the iPad, and I picked up the pen again and went to that. And about that time is when my stuff started to get noticed. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I think this has worked out swimmingly. So I'm back to the pen and everything. Once I start getting more comfortable doing illustrations and things, with the pen, I'll probably start going back to digital, because you can streamline your workflow on digital and get things done a lot faster. So once I'm more confident in the actual drawing skills and stuff, I'll probably do a lot more digitally than I am right now. I'd like to, be able to maybe hand draw all, my world maps and the stuff that I want really detailed, and, and like commission work and stuff like that, I'll do by hand. But I'd like to be able to kind of rapidly put out, battle maps and things that, people can just take and use for their own adventures and things like that. And I think that that would work out digitally quite well, you know, where you can make, you know, you can make your own, you know, house and then save it to the side and just drag it in and move it, manipulate it, and it's done. You know, so I'd like to get
I
there
think
eventually,
there's a lot more scope with digital mapping. Have you thought maybe that if you did like an outline on paper with your pens, the way that you feel comfortable now, and then sort of take a photo of it and use that as reference? I mean, I don't know if that's what you're already doing, but that way you could kind of get the creating something out of your brain. It's easier to do it with a pen, and then you can like add layers on that are digital.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I haven't so far, but for sure that would be something I could do. That's the one thing you mentioned, layers, that digitally is really nice, you know, because right now I've done a couple of commissions, and once you get, you know, over halfway done with the commission, you're like, oh my, you know, if I screw something up now, you know,
the terror is real.
Right, yeah. So by the time I get to the end, I'm just sweating, you know, this, especially lettering. Lettering's, I don't feel comfortable lettering at all. So anytime anyone asks me to draw a name on a map, that's when the cold sweat begins, and like, oh God, don't screw this up, you know. So digitally, that's nice to be able to work in layers, and I don't like it, hit rewind, redo it until it looks right. And
yeah. One thing you can do with something I've discovered, it's only for small, it's not for big boo-boos, but for small boo-boos, I use very white paper, and then I have a white gel pen, which I can cover things in a few layers first. And usually I send my clients a print of it. Now, obviously I'm not editing it digitally, only upping the contrast a bit. But if you do make a small boo-boo or whatever, you can mild, like it's almost like Tipex, but not quite the same as just being like, cut that out. So it might be helpful for you. It's certainly, it's taken a lot of stress out of drawing for me, knowing that there are small changes that I can make if I do accidentally make a mistake, because drawing by hand, you know, it's never going to be perfect. So yeah, that's just something I do. I don't know if that's helpful for you.
Oh, I worship your line work. The lines that you do, I would swear you drew everything that you do digitally, because your lines are so clean. It's just, I love it.
It takes a long time. And as I say, I only do really tiny lines that I have to correct sometimes. If I just think, oh, why did I put a tree there? Then I just sort of pencil it or pen it out. But yeah, it just, I've just been born with a steady hand. I think I was gifted that from my father, his steady hand genetics.
Yeah, that's something I struggle with for sure.
Well, I'm excited to see you kind of exploring the world of digital art more, because I really think that your pen and paper maps are so beautiful, and especially like your dungeon maps and the stippling perfection.
Yeah, I started the stippling thing, and I think being stuck there isn't the right word, but like I'm on that stippling path now, and I think people expect to see that, and I like it, you know. So yeah, when I did that, following Josh's tutorial, Josh Stolar's, the Desert Tomb tutorial where he drew the isometric tomb entrance, and I did that one, was the very first picture that I ever did with stippling, and it turned out pretty well. And then I decided to do the dungeon that went with it. I mean, you remember that whole Dungeon Tomb series I did with the narrative and all that, and that was all stippling. And that was the first experience I'd ever had with stippling, and it worked out really well, and people loved it. So I just kind of gone with it, and you know, and that's kind of become my thing now. So
you should put that on a t-shirt, born to stipple.
Right.
So tell us about your sources of inspiration. Obviously you've mentioned the artist who creates all the like creatures, but any other sources of inspiration, and also any other favorite cartographers or artists on Instagram or Facebook?
Well, yeah, sure. I almost hate to give a list because there's so many. You know, if I list 10, there's 20 other ones that I've missed.
Yeah.
But Anya Baz for sure was probably way back in the beginning, started it. Josh Stolarz is probably influenced my cartography more than anyone else. Just even though I don't think what I do looks like his, just seeing him break down his process into steps, it's really been helpful. And your stuff is amazing. Like I said, I covet your line work, and I'm always striving to make everything I do more clear the way that you do. But other people, there's George Mason, right? Reclusive cartographer.
Yeah.
Him, Misty B, if you look at her stuff, I think it's just, it almost makes me cry because I know I'll never be that good. Paths Peculiar, that's another one. Jog Brogson for sure. His stuff too. He puts out so much great stuff so fast. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's intense.
I'll put out a brand new map. I'm like, hey, wow, everybody, look at this map that I just put out. And then 10 minutes later, he puts out a new one, and I'm like, oh, that's way better than mine. So yeah, so there's him. I feel like Bumbling Bee Cartography needs a shout out here because her stuff is so, like, it tells such a great story, everything she does, and that's what I really try to do with all of my work. So for sure there's that. I know there's so many other people that I should be mentioning, but
no, there's so many.
Oh yeah. Coffee Cartographo, or however you pronounce that name, that's another one. He's
Michael, yeah,
just a wonderful person, so yeah, there's so many that I'll never be able to remember all of them, but I appreciate everyone. This cartography community is so nice and helpful. I have yet to meet anyone that rubbed me the wrong way. Everybody's been so kind.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's so unusual in an online community to have such supportive people constantly. I never see anybody really saying anything bad about each other, and any criticism that's offered is always constructive. It's never sort of, what are you doing? Why are you drawing maps? Which is it's really nice because it's so easy to stumble into a more negative sphere on the internet. So we're very lucky.
Yeah. Oh, I want to mention too, Monica Lacopus, who I know you'll be interviewing up next.
Yeah, not next week, the week after.
Right, exactly. Her stuff is great. I like looking at it because, when you look at it, you're like, wow, look at this fantasy map. But everything she does is really outside the box. Like the way she draws mountains is like the way nobody else does. And I want to try to create a style of my own that people will recognize and just look at it without seeing a name and be like, oh yeah, that's Whiskey and Ink. So I like her stuff for that reason.
Yeah, her work is really beautiful, and every time she's trying something different all the time, which I really admire, and just such unusual kind of points of view. I find that she does very interesting perspectives. It's not just a map. It's kind of like different views of the mountains and things that are going on. Yeah, really, really great. Yeah. What is your favorite map that you've ever drawn, or icon, illustration, etc.?
Well, I think the whole Desert Tomb series was probably my favorite, only because that's when I started to do something that I recognized as being my own. I struggle with style quite a bit, and that was the first time where I was like, okay, this was kind of my coming to moment or whatever. But I don't know if you remember, recently I have it right here. I did an illustration of a sword stuck in the ground. This one right here. I feel like that is probably my favorite, and for me felt like a turning point in the art that I was doing. And, from that point on, my art kind of took on that same look as the shading, the stippling along with shadows and the highlights and all that. And that's something on that illustration after, I think I've started to adopt that as a style. So I would say the sword in the ground illustration is my favorite, for sure. But the one that I think, like I said, the Desert Tomb series, I think really kind of put me on the map a little bit,
Yeah, put you on the map, pun intended.
I do that on purpose.
Yeah, no, I really like that one. I really like the scorpion compass that you did. But I
Oh
also
yeah,
like the sword one and the door, the sort of mystical door that you drew. I thought that was really
yeah,
interesting and
yeah, yeah.
really stuck out to
That
me.
was this one right
Yeah, that one.
here. Has a kind of a 3D look to it. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's really nice.
And in terms of future projects, obviously you've mentioned kind of creating this complete D&D sort of book or whatever. But have you got any dream mapping projects, or where do
Well,
you want your mapping Instagram business to go?
well, I want. Well, this Land of Anaya that I told you that I've started, I think that's going to be a very big long-term project. And I really like working on it with my kids. I love the fact that they still like to do stuff with me, because they're getting older, and I'm just tickled that they still want to do it. So um,
Means
I'll be
it's good.
working on. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. So I'll be working on that for a long time, but eventually I would like to really make this a marketable D&D like 5e setting, like there's, Dragonlance, or there's, whatever. And I would like one of those D&D settings to be Land of Anaya, So I'll be working on that for a pretty long time. And as I get better at illustrating my own stuff, I'm hoping I can put that together in a nice, package and be able to present that to the world. So I think that's both short term and long term. I'll be working on that, but it's such a big project. It
Yeah.
takes on all forms. There's, I could write whole novels of, people and places and things that take place there. And then you got your dungeon maps and your, political intrigue and all that stuff. And I'll be working on that probably for the rest of my life, for sure.
Got your work
What
cut
I
out for you.
Yeah, I do. It's like I said, the more you write, the more I realize I have to write. If you want to make it realistic, there's so much you have to think about, and it's a bit overwhelming sometimes. But there's that, and I'd like to get to the point, in my business where between Patreon commissions and stuff, that I can do it full time, so that I can wake up when I want to, grab my cold caffeine and start working, make that my work day. So I'm hoping I can get to that point where I can work on.
Yeah, I'm sure that you'll be able to get there. Like, your enthusiasm and obviously your talent is growing and your skill is growing. So I'm sure that day is going to come sooner than you think.
I hope so. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to try hard. We'll see.
Well, we're all rooting for you, so.
Thank you.
Jog Brogson asked, do you have any map phobias? I thought this was a really good question.
Map phobias. Yeah, I suppose. Sometimes I get into this procrastination mode, for sure, where I think about drawing maps and it just doesn't really happen. I find reasons not to do it. I don't know if that's a phobia or not, but I find that it's hard for me to get a project started. So there's that. But as far as things that I don't like drawing, some kind of phobia, I have a really hard time drawing figures, people, especially faces. So I try to find ways around it, not to draw people. I don't know if that counts as a phobia, but I just know that I hate doing it. So I try to do that. But as far as, things that I don't like to draw, I think that I'm terrible at drawing water too. So I try to just not draw it. Here's the outline and your mind just fills in the water parts. This is where the water
Yeah.
goes. But I don't really have any phobias, really, like nothing that I'm really scared to draw, because I always, if there's something that I don't know how to draw, I'll look online, I'll pull up reference prints and fill up a sketchbook with all me making silly, stupid looking things until I pop onto something that, seems to work, and then I'll add it. Not that long ago, and I think that I talked to you about it for quite some time. was gonna draw a world map for the land that I'm in, and um, I just decided one day that I had no idea how to draw a mountain anymore. Every one that I drew just looked worse than the one before, and then it got in my head, and all of a sudden I just couldn't draw anything. And like in like a 24-hour period, I had just couldn't remember how to draw anything, and I tried drawing and it just didn't work out. But there was like you and Josh Stolars I talked to quite extensively about it, and then I decided to combine the mountains with the stippling that I've been doing, and then that's when it kind of all came together again. And
Yeah.
now I'm back on the right path again, I think. But
I think everybody has times like that when you kind of like, you just think, what am I doing? I don't know how to start. I don't know how to continue. And I think I said to you, you know, just maybe try, well, firstly, just put it down. Just don't look at it for a bit because it's going to get in your head. The mountains are going to look at you and they're like, I know you're scared. And then also trying a different project because then you're still creating, even if you're not creating that thing, your brain's not lost that sort of flow. And then after a while, it always does come back to you. It's just a matter of, you know, keeping at it. And you obviously overcame it, which is really, that's
right. Part of it, I think,
great.
is that I sort of hit, you know, plateau. I go on learning, and all of a sudden I get to a level and I just feel like I just can't get to where I want to be, you know, and so I'm always reaching for something higher. And then eventually you reach that plateau and you're happy with what you're doing, and yay, I'm going along, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what though, this it doesn't look that great. I wish I would be doing this. And so I think when I did the mountain thing, I just hit a point where I wanted to be better than I was, and I was frustrated because I just couldn't get there, you know. But I worked through it, like you said, and I'm on my way.
Don't worry, we've all been there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So we've just got the last 10 minutes. So could you tell everybody a bit more about your commissions and your Patreon? What can people expect when they're going to commission you for something, or what they're looking at on your Patreon?
Okay.
Because we love self-promotion.
I haven't done a lot of commission work so far. There's Alex, who lives in the UK. I just recently did a commission for, and we're lined up to do several more for his campaign. So I'll have more coming up that I'll share with people. I've done a lot of commission work in my graphic design business, though. I mean, that's pretty much all I do is commission work. So it's kind of a love-hate thing. I mean, you know, you're flattered that people trust you with their stuff, you know, whether it's their D&D world or their business, and you're doing logos and things. But so there's that, you know, and it's always cool when someone says, hey, I'll pay you to do what you do. So that's always fun. But there's a lot of pressure with commissions, you know, and there's just a lot. You're all, you know, always in my head, you know, am I making them happy? If they said that they like it, but do they really like it? You know, are they just, you know, are they just saying that to be nice? Like, don't just tell me how it is. There's a lot of pressure with commissions, but I don't know. I also think that I work best under pressure when I have a deadline. When I say this needs to be done by next week Tuesday, I think that's when my best stuff comes out. So there's that. I'd like to be doing a lot more commission work, you know, maps. As you know, it's nice to have that there. So I'll be really pushing for that. Patreon, I'm hoping, is going to be my main, you know, outlet for that. What I want to do with the Patreon, which is perhaps a little over ambitious at this point, is I want to share, you know, basically all of my world building stuff on Patreon. So, you know, like at the lower levels, you know, at the entry level, the $3 level, people can get all my, you know, all the maps and illustrations, you know, like the, you know, the sword and my maps and the doorway that, you know, that you said you like all that stuff will be on there, downloadable, and they're all, you know, high res, you know, 300 DPI scan, so people can print it out in large format, whatever. And so there's all that. And then the next level up, I would like to have all that stuff, plus then all of the adventures and world building stuff, you know, for the map that I just did, but then I did a whole whole side adventure that's part of that. The Red Tooth Spire stuff that I've been doing lately. That's all that stuff is for that adventure. So there's all of that, and then at the third level, I'll open all that up. But the third level will also be more of a back and forth between me and those patrons, where people will have a lot of input into what it is I'll be drawing. So if I'm drawing a map, and I'll ask, well, what should be in this room, or I might ask, have them help me solve problems. Okay, I need the big evil bad guy for this adventure. What should that be? And try to get a back and forth going, and just do all that, and then behind the scenes stuff. So, and as I grow the Patreon, I'd like to expand it too into, I mentioned I'm a musician, so I'd like to be even writing my own music and adding it to that. And
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I haven't done that yet for my own stuff, because there's just so many minutes in the day I have.
That's the cherry on top.
Right. But to be able to do that and do a whole package of things, it would be fun. So yeah, basically just Patreon. I'm going to do all of my, mapping, illustration, world building, everything on there. It's going to be, mini adventures. It'll be whole complete adventures. I'd like to do a lot more like short stories and sort of cinematic descriptions of things. If I just draw a map of a cottage in the woods, but do a whole short story that goes along with it, so you really get a background of the people that live there and the characters and what they do in their lives, and just really immersive, adventuring. I'd like to do all that on the Patreon. So
that sounds awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and Patreon too. It's if you're someone who is interested in my stuff, it's such a small amount of money, per month, that I think it's easier for people to contribute and get what they want. It's like a symbiotic relationship. They get my stuff, they get input in what I'm doing, and the more people that are doing that, the more resources and time I have to do what I'm doing. And so I'm hoping to really build that up and have the community is so cool and welcoming. It'd be really neat to have that big group of people working with me all the time and contributing to me and me to them and the whole thing. It's
yeah,
nice.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot planned out for yourself. I hope that you've also planned in some respites, and just that's a lot of work that you've put out for yourself. So just pace yourself, but also get going, because we all want to see it.
It's obviously a long-term thing. Right now, I'm just focusing on just drawing the maps that are in front of me and writing some adventure to go with it. And that's pretty much what I'm doing right now, and an illustration or two to go along with them, and trying to keep my focus pretty narrow right now until I have more time in my life to really expand and start doing more of the things that I want to do.
Yeah, well, that all
time
sounds...
management is big.
Yeah, it's I think it's something that we just have to learn with time. Well, I'm hoping. I hope that I'm going to get better at it as life goes on. But I think that's all we've got time for today, Fred. But thank you so much for coming on and talking to us all. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you for a map
Thank you.
Knack Chats. And just so much stuff.
Okay, well, thanks for the opportunity, and this was a blast, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Okay, so I'll make sure that Fred is tagged in the description of this video, so if you want to go and check him out, then you should go and say hello to him, and make sure you like and save all of his posts so that the algorithm boosts him in the way that it should be. And yeah, we'll see more of you in the future.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody who's watching. Thank you.
Thank you. See you, everyone.